All right, you got yeah.
Hi, Alyssa.
Hi,
You ready?
I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Here's one.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not
I
here.
guess it's not coming. Okay, it's sorry.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order at 6:36. Note the symmetry on 10/11, October 11th. 20 days till Halloween. 20 days to get your costume together.
Yay. I got my same one every year.
I do too. I go as a college professor. All right. As is our new custom, we will begin with the comptroller's update.
Thank you, Rennie. All of you should have a copy of the sales tax and the narrative report. Not a lot to update since the last report. You do have the audit report in front of you, so we do have the 2022 numbers are confirmed. The fund balance of the general fund is audited pretty similar to what I've been working on here. I think there was some very minor adjustments to receivables, et cetera, but relatively unchanged. As of December 31st, 2022, the fund balance is $10,771,374. That amount is 21.5% of the 2023 adopted general fund budget. When I look at the history over the last few years, our fund balance is now sitting in that range for the last 3 years, so that's pretty stable. We did make a recommendation earlier this year to use some of that 22 fund balance to pay down some capital. So hopefully that'll keep it stabilized. In addition, I've been reporting throughout the year 2023, the expenses are tracking a bit high. So a little more pressure on the fund balance this year. The sales tax, you have the reports. The last several checks have all been relatively consistent with the prior year, slightly above. We're now at the high point of where we have been since January, where for on a year-to-date basis, we're just over 2.5% over the prior year. So it's starting to look like as we're kind of getting back to the old trend of where sales tax growth is, modest and, year over year. So but I'll keep you updated. I did see the next payment on this line, if you look at 2022 amount to $1,638. We did get notification of the 2023 amount. I didn't fill it in because we haven't received it. But that amount was above the $1,638, but not drastically. So it's in line with the other recent payments that we've received. Other than that, favorable categories continue to track favorable. Regular pay is well below budget. Overtime's tracking high. Multi-peril liability insurance is way over, expected $75,000 over. There's a lot of pressure on that budget with different liability exposures in municipality space, cyber liability, things like that. So I expected that number will be over $1 million next year. So let's see, we're seeing some significant increases. And there's also a lot of pressure on hospital medical. The rates jumped up for 23. We don't have a 24 rate yet. So, if you have any questions, let me know.
And contingency.
Contingency sitting at 440.
Okay.
Should be enough to get us through the rest of the year unless something drastic happens.
Okay.
If I have the ability to replenish it through other budget extras, I will.
Okay.
And no likely as we get closer to the year, I do expect some departments to have more pressure on needing outside funds to cover some of their departmental expenses. The larger departments overall seem like they're doing pretty good. But some of the smaller departments that have less areas to pull from might feel that pressure.
Do you think we'll be seeing some spending from the general fund in the upcoming budget so we can bring that down to our acceptable levels?
Spending from the
I'm sorry, from
the fund balance?
Yeah.
Well, you have a couple things. I mean, each year after, I think our policy says after the audit's complete, but we've been doing it after internal numbers are complete because we're pretty comfortable that the audited figures are going to be close to our internal. So that was one of the actions we took earlier this year to spend down that fund balance to get it below. It's hard to get to the point where you can definitively bring it down because you would have to, it's you're always a year in, right? So like, we're looking at 22 numbers, we're already into 23, right? So the spending action that we took in 23 to use fund balance to pay down capital and debt was enough to bring that 22 number down below 20%. The issue is that if you have a surplus of 23, you're back up again in 23. So kind of give you an idea, I looked at the history. And without the actions the council can take, we would be way over the 20. So we were at 21.4 at the end of 20. Took actions, and then we had a surplus again. We went up to 21.86%. And now this year we're down to 21.48%. I would expect that the mayor's budget will probably increase the fund balance appropriation to try to leverage some of that, fund balance that we've been adding. So hopefully that, along with the action the council's already taken, we'll be in better shape. Certainly, I don't know where we finish this year. You see, think we use more fund balance to pay things off. It's just, keep in mind, fund balance doesn't always equate to cash, right? So like at the end of the year, like right now, or when I say end of the year, like you get into December, we could be hovering around, 4 or 5 million cash maybe. So you can't, the fund balance number can't get too low because it's not all liquid. Some of it's a receivable, some of it's not like we actually have. And when the fund balance was lower, we were borrowing. We were doing cash flows, which was killing our credit rating at that time. So but we are actively trying to manage that fund balance and keep it from growing any further from where it's at. Ideally, we get in that 15 to 20% range, probably a big point in there, 17, 8%. Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions, comments?
I like hearing some buzzing.
I hear it too.
Yeah.
It's just quiet now.
Anybody else curious?
It was just like slip right.
Might be Drew.
It sounds so loud.
It's always about
It's energy. Thank you, John.
All right. The first item of business is a budget transfer in the Department of Civil Service. This is an internal shifting of funds, so there's zero financial impact. Do you have a motion to discuss?
Second. Choose.
Jack Suka couldn't be here tonight, but I think to be clear, any discussion?
Zero financial impact.
Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The next one is also an internal transfer to cover coverages regarding vehicle maintenance and some physical and medical examinations, but it's within the police department, so it's $0 financial impact. Do we have a motion to discuss? Motion. Sharon? Second by Bob. Any discussion? During the discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. The next item on the list is a re-levy, the unpaid DPW charges to tax bills. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this process, anybody out there watching, a re-levy means that we are taking charges imposed by DPW and adding them to property tax bills, unpaid charges rather, and we're adding them to property owners' tax bills. So this reads request approval to relay unpaid DPW charges totaling $33,178 onto the city's 2024 property tax bills, and it will have zero financial impact. Any questions about it?
Yeah, these are like people that didn't clear their sidewalk, people that, this is the kind of charge we're talking about. Fine.
Yeah, so, most of these are not.
They're small numbers, yeah.
We've seen some on the water bill, review things that are much larger. Yeah, quick look, 750 is the biggest one I see. There's 2,600 for somebody. Most of these are in the $100 range. All right, motion to discuss.
Motion.
Excellent.
All right, any discussion? During the discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Next item is another re-levy. This is on unpaid building safety charges for tax bills. So same deal, but this can get a little bit bigger. So the description reads, request approval to re-levy unpaid building department charges totaling $206,935.40 onto the city's 2024 property tax bills. Questions?
So these are, I assume these are totally uncondemned buildings, knocking down buildings ultimately, I suppose, the building department how to do that. So making unsafe buildings secure. And
That would be, yeah, but I mean, there's also things like sometimes somebody has not cut down a dangerous tree that's in their yard. That's, on the border between the city's right of way and the yard and things like that.
So so fines are not in this mix.
Fines,
Right, if you get a fine from the building department, are they
It
in
would
this
be,
mix or
it
not?
would be,
They are.
it would be, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, again, most of these are small, but I'm seeing one that's $8,000, one that's
It's not a
$9,000.
pretty decent.
Some of those can also, yeah, so.
Were you making property charges in there?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Only recovery rate is.
Well, when we put it on the tax bill, it goes up higher.
Right.
Well, to the extent that they pay their.
Presuming they pay the tax bill, right?
Our collection rate for tax bills hovers around 98%.
All right, so motion to discuss.
Motion.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by Steve Shabbat. Get read the description. So any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. The last item on our official agenda is the 2022 audit.
Okay, well, I gave away the punchline a little while ago, but the 2022 audit is complete. It's quite the process. Overall, I'm pleased to say that it went well. I found that there's minimal adjustments. No formal audit comments in the audit report itself, no findings on federal reports, anything like that. So it's good to get the reaffirmation of our work. It's a good company to work with. It's tedious at times. There's a lot of, we've now transitioned from the old, handing over of a lot of paper documents to now everything electronic, so the web form and upload a lot of things through the web portal. So it's, been a little bit of adjustment for staff and all of us, but overall it's good. I gave you the report on the fund balance. It's $10,771,374. The audit report shows the financials from kind of like the entity-wide level with all the funds combined, and then it breaks it out by fund. Most people can on, the general fund and the sewer funds, but that audit report goes out to the banks that we deal with. It goes to the credit rating agencies. It goes to the state. Goes to both the state, the OSC, as well as the granting agencies that we deal with. Gets filed on the federal website, so it's now posted on our website, so it's publicly available for your constituents to ask. If anyone ever has a question on it, it's available to go through it. But if you have an interest in any particular questions to go through, I can.
I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's not overly exciting, but The key thing is as you go through, there is a section where it breaks down by fund, and you will see the general fund broken down. There's another area where there's a sewer fund broken down, so if you want any more information on those funds, you'll see that there, but in terms of what, I talked about the fund balance levels a few minutes ago. I can tell you that the increase year over year, see if I can find that. Our fund balance, in general fund increased by our unassigned fund balance, which is the figure that we use for our calculation of the fund balance level we have, for our fund policy, went up $557,718. Once again, looking forward to next year, going back to Randy's comment about using fund balance, I would expect, I know there's an ambitious capital plan coming up this year. We'll see that relatively soon. I would expect that next year, if cash flow permitting, then we would end up submitting requests to use fund balance to pay off some of that capital if, so we have to borrow for it to the extent that we can, so, we use some of it.
Does the audit address things like that, like the size of the fund balance, like maybe it's a little too high, maybe it's, you need a little more, do they offer opinions on that?
No, I mean, the state would, I mean, we're in the area where National Government Finance Officers Association says a reasonable fund balance. There's no hard and fast rule of, size to the municipality when you kind of, when your cash flow is, but certainly we're at a good level right now. Our policy are actively trying to manage it, try to bring it down, take actions. That's why, like, if you look at what we did last year, the council approved last year, we approved $3.4 million of fund balance withdrawals last year. And we still added, so I mean, like, we're taking action to reduce it, but then favorable budgetary performance adds to it. As I mentioned, last several months, 2023 budgetary performance is a little tougher. But, last year, if you look at some of the big numbers, we paid down borrowing, and then we paid off some capital equipment, almost $1.5 million. Police retro, $937,000. You got the CSEA contract that we just settled. A lot of that's going to come from fund balance. I don't think you haven't seen those numbers yet. I mean, in terms of we have to pay for retro, I would expect all that retro will come from fund balance. And then 2024 budget will account for it, but there's going to be some fund balance withdrawals coming. So, but it's for that rainy day, and it's it's cloudy right now.
Real quick, how do we get the order?
We do an RFP, so we will.
And we've had the same guy or same?
We've had them for 2 RFP cycles. We actually had a long time auditor, probably 20 or 25 years was at least, was our prior auditor. We had Mary Kimball, O'Brien. We've been now with this RVP CPAs for 2 RFP cycles. And they've done a good job. So we expect that we'll do an RFP again this fall. We're at the end of the second 5-year term with them. I have to look back at it. Yeah. We did the first RFP back in 2013. So we'll be doing it again. And I believe if you look at our numbers, we're actually paying less for the audit than we were just 10 years ago. So.
Let's talk.
Well, why or
We're paying less?
well, I think at that time we were. I would do expect that we're going to see some increases in the recent inflation rate. So we had this last RFP, we had a fixed 5-year cost. That was before this recent economic cycle that drove prices up. But sometimes when you've been with a firm for a long time, like in excess of 20 years, you get a little price creep on it. And then when we did that initial RFP, we saw the price come down quite a bit. We had responses from, it was over half dozen, maybe 7 or 8 different audit firms. And we selected a few to speak to. We picked the firm that we're with now, and then, their price has been consistent all along, but, I'm expecting that the next FRP that we issue, we're gonna see some proposals that are higher, right? So, but that's only just one of the factors in determining, the audit firm, right? It's
It's the best value.
the best value. It's the best value. You're looking at, their ability to do the work, with their experience in government. The firm that we're with right now does a lot of government work, particularly in this area. They do the KFC audit, and they do a number of Hudson Valley municipal audits. So, they've got a municipal team. That was one of the reasons why we selected them off. So
Do we have to do a FAR audit for the federal aid stuff that we get or not?
we have to do we call it a single audit, federal single audit. So yeah, any entity that spends over $750,000 in federal grants or awards in a given year has to go through a federal single audit. So every year I've been here, we've had to have that done. The threshold used to be lower. It's now $750,000, but we're way above that. So now even with ARPA, we'll be auditing ARPA. They audited ARPA this year. ARPA is designated as a program that they, I believe, have to audit every year. So, they looked at it this year.
They being the grantor, not the auditor. The
The
auditor.
auditors,
So,
the auditors actually, yeah, they have to, so so what they do with the federal audits is, and I'm just speaking from my experience when I was an auditor, and this is what we did, but they have what's called compliance supplements. So for every federal program, there's what they call a CFDA number, Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance, and it's the number that's assigned to that program. And they'll have a compliance supplement that tells them exactly, these are the things that you should check or have to check. These are the requirements for that program. And they go through that program and they ask for the records and they check all the way down that supplement, make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to. That's why, not on this audit, the audit before, there was a comment about the way certain quarterly expense reports filed. But yeah, they're just bopping down that checklist and looking for, make sure we're doing everything right. But once again, when they do that, they don't test every single federal dollar that we spend, right? We may have 4, 5, 6 different federal grant awards. They'll test some of them. They'll pick out a couple that they want to look at based on materiality, maybe risk. Like I said, the ARPA, I believe they have to test every single year, so that's always going to be one that they look at, and then they'll select from other ones, but then they'll go down a checklist on all, whichever grant they pick, they're going down a checklist on. So, we get a lot of very tedious type questions on those, but, over the years, we've learned to, we gotta, make sure that we're following all the requirements of the grants and, read everything through. That's why ARPA brought that checklist. Shortly after the spending plan was put in place, that checklist was designed to meet their compliance requirements, right? So,
Quick question.
sure.
Who does the background checks and interviews, and then does the auditor present to a board or the finance board or the mayor yourself?
Does the auditor present to this board? They would upon request. I think if the council wanted to come in and do some type of presentation, they would. I believe it's happened in the past, but
Then, who's doing an interview or background check of the
auditors? Well, when we do the RFP for the audit, right? So each firm would submit a proposal. They submit a proposal and then basically a proposal of the firm's qualifications. They also send a cost proposal. I review the proposals and I make a recommendation to the council to appoint the auditor. So the council would formally say, this is the auditor, right? But when I'm looking at the qualifications, I'm looking primarily at what's your experience in the municipal realm. and then, where are you located, where, so, I mean, there's a number of factors, I can give an idea, right, so so let's get time on this. I actually put together a matrix the last time we did this, and so approach to audit quality was one set of checklist, one set of areas where I graded team knowledge and experience, unique qualifications, value-added services, scope and pricing and engagement was another piece. So, I mean, one thing I'll say is this firm that we're dealing with now has been very, very helpful with anything we need. We asked them questions on tax-related matters, the tax department. We've been bouncing a lot of ARPA-related questions on them. They've been very, very engaged and responsive on that. So they are a pretty full-service firm. Yeah.
You check the references as well?
Oh, yeah.
You looked them up on the dark web?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it's a small world. I mean, we know who's auditing who, and I know a lot of controllers and finance people. I tend to know, not all of them, but, the ones who are doing business locally, we tend to know who the players are.
Here's the loaded question, were they the least expensive?
Last time, I don't believe they were.
Good.
I will look. They were on the lower side for sure. They were not the lowest. And some of them are tough because some of them don't. So for an example, last year we asked for prices through 5 years. Some refused to give the full 5-year prices because they want the ability, they want to come in there and see, are your books a mess? Are we going to jack the fees up or are they, right? So, but to give you an idea, last time, the range of, there was one firm that bid $320,000 over 5 years. Our audit firm bid $225,000. There's quite a bit of price difference. Another came in at $227,000, another at $218,000. So ours is right in that range, but relying on past experience with the firm that we're at, and they've done good work for us. So. And then we had a couple firms, one out of Albany, some from out of the area, I think the Buffalo area, some from the city, Long Island, would only present 4 firms presented either 1 or 2 years of fees, but they didn't lock in. And that ended up being a big savings for us getting the 5 years locked in, especially these last 3 years with the price increases. So, yeah, I plan to do something similar again this year. Excellent. You're welcome.
Well done, John.
Thanks.
The fun and
Well, it's tough because you don't really see our auditors here. I deal with them all the time, and there's 3 different partners there that I work with, and it can be challenging sometimes, but they are good firms to work with. I think they're pretty reasonable. As reasonable as auditors is.
Auditors are wild.
So what?
Wild people auditors, right?
Yeah, they're flying crazy. So
The state comptroller, when they did their assessments of the city earlier this year, the audit team doesn't come down. You don't have to deal with the state comptroller.
from time to time we do. From time to time, they came, they audited our tax calculation a number of years ago. That was fine, but they'll come in periodically and test look at a particular area, and then take their findings and just make some changes, put it in place, and then. Yeah, they're not, the state's not doing like a financial audit. I mean, our auditors are doing a financial audit and from a risk standpoint, they're looking at our controls. They're looking at our controls. Do we have adequate controls in place to safeguard things? Material controls, right, over financial operations.
For government, what is the federal, is that a 990? I know for nonprofits, 990, and then it's state is char 500.
Right.
Is it similar?
So like all right, so for local government, like what we do is we don't have, governments do not file any of that unless they have for-profit ventures of some sort, but we file a annual report to New York State. That's our requirement. We don't file anything to the federal government. We have like payroll tax, and we do everything a regular for-profit entity would do there. But in terms of like an annual filing, there's nothing with the IRS. There's a report that's due to New York State May 1st every year in a prescribed format. So it's like it's our own internal audit, so to speak. It's basically our financial statement. We send to the state, and the state it actually reviews it. It comes back with some really good questions sometimes, and recommendations of, hey, look at what's in this balance. So actually look at the balances and
Who in the state reviews?
Office State Controller. So it's somewhat usually an auditor, who works,
Right.
one of their different auditors, but they're well trained and they'll ask good questions. That usually happens within a couple months of sending a report in. And then our auditors are basically auditing the figures that went to make that report to the state. So, it is getting looked at from two sets of eyes. It's getting looked at by the state, and it's getting looked at by our external auditors.
Thank you.
Cool.
Motion.
Or there's still these things. All right, Elisa, I think we're done. So, Kenny, there was a motion to adjourn and a second and a vote.
accept that audit? Don't we usually?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, never mind. There wasn't a vote to adjourn. You're right. I got it right here. So do we have a motion to discuss the audit acceptance?
Motion.
So this is not saying that we agree that everything in the audit is correct. We're simply accepting that it has been provided to us. All right, any discussion?
What?
What?
I look forward to it.
Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Request acceptance of the city's 2022 independent audit report, $0 financial impact.
We're on the committee reports.
You didn't get it?
No.
No, they're.
On over here?
Did you get the Bob?
I don't have to be in my office.
They're right there, they're right there.
Oh, we don't need an emergency meeting next week. Find committee reports.
No.
And also,
We just stacked them up. There's one more. Yeah.
basically, we call confidential memo to the board from the council that will say, basically just outlines an overview of their audit process and the recommendation that they have, but they're not formal audit comments.
Drew, you check yes or no on your vote.
Yeah.
I want to do that for you, Bob.
Go ahead.
So, gotta check yes or no on your vote.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
You're giving me a lot of power there.
So the check is all right. They changed it.
All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Aye. All right, Alyssa, now we're officially adjourned.
Okay, have a good night.
Thank you.
Two of us.